Well, folks, I'm so glad you can join us for another week of the Rec Poker Podcast. Yeah, we're having a good time here in the booth. Me and all my Rec poker friends talking about this great game that we love so much. Thanks for joining us, folks. My name is Jim Reid. I'm Bluff Sterini in the home game and at Rec Poker Jim on Twitter. This is the Rec Poker Podcast. I've got the best freaking job in the world, hanging out with these hooligans and talking about poker here on the air. This is a special edition of the podcast. It's the last mixed game forum podcast that we're doing, and it's about 8-game mix. So regular listeners will know all year long we've been focusing on a different featured mixed game of the month as part of our home game club. And we'll be sharing some tips on 8-game mix and hearing from some fantastic guests a little later in the show. But first, I have to mention that we're brought to you by Running Aces, the official sponsor of the Rec Poker Podcast. And most of what we do here is free. We're a largely volunteer-based organization, so we really depend on the support of our sponsors and our premium members who help us out a lot with their $15 a month. We have a lot of premium members who just chip in their $15 a month to help support what we're doing, and we really appreciate that. A lot of other folks are premium members because they enjoy taking part in our study opportunities and our training materials, our study groups, our social activities, all the fun stuff that we do here. It's a bargain for only $15 a month, but you can get your first month for only $5 by using the code RECPOKER at checkout. And of course, we do a lot of stuff here for free, so just come and get a free account at Rec Poker, join our free learning community, and unlock some of the fantastic features like our Discord, the home game club, the podcast, the forums. We do videos, we do road trips. We've got a ton of free tools and resources and ways that you can improve your game, all for free at rec.poker. So come and check it out. Now, they let me host the show on Mondays, so you might have heard my voice before, but I am only one man, and it takes a group, a gang, a crew to make all the magic happen around here. We call this group of wizards the Wrecking Crew, and if you want to find out more about me and the rest of the Wrecking Crew, you can just head on over to rec.poker/crew, or you can listen up because you're going to meet a few of them right here tonight on the show, starting with the man that makes all the home game magic happen, the irreplaceable John freaking Somsky. John, take it away.
I'm John Somsky, also known as Poker Geek MN everywhere, and I guess I am the high wizard of our home games.
Nailed it.
I'm Rob Washam. You find me as Rabman50 just about everywhere. And on the first and third Wednesdays of each month, you can join me and a group of our Rec Poker Premium members as we discuss various poker books.
And I'm Taylor Moss. You can find me on Twitter at Taylor_Moss or as Gopher Boy TJM in the PokerStars home game, which I stream live on Twitch on Wednesday evenings at 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Central at twitch.tv/recpoker.
And the home games are just one of those perks of joining our free membership here at Rec Poker. And regular listeners will know that we have been running a series all year focusing on a different mixed game each month that we're playing in our home game club. So on the second Wednesday of every month, we have a Player of the Year race tournament series where we play a different mixed game every month. The mixed game in December is going to be 8-game mix on the second Wednesday of December. And so we're releasing these strategy podcasts a little early so that you get a chance to learn about the game and brush up a little bit in our practice mixed games, which are on the third and fourth and fifth Wednesdays of every month. So hopefully, if I've done the math right, this episode's coming out on Tuesday. Tomorrow should be the third Wednesday of November, which would be the first practiced mixed game of 8-game mix. So listen to the podcast, get some tips, listen to what some poker pros and celebrities have to say at the end of the show about their own tips for 8-game mix, and then come practice with us on Wednesday nights for the next couple of weeks and learn your chops, and then come play for all the marbles on the second Wednesday in December. And it's not too late to win your way into our Player of the Year championship, our mixed game championship. Every winner of our second Wednesday of the month tournament gets in there. So even though it's going to be a little late to get into the actual Player of the Year points race, it's not too late to win a seat in the championship next month. And you can do it by playing 8-game mix. So, John, this is the 12th and final variation in our mixed game schedule this year. It's obviously a mix, I'm guessing, of 8 games. Tell us a little bit about the games, why they're in this grouping together, and maybe we can come up with some tips for the audience for how to get the most out of their playing experience if they're a little less familiar with 8-game mix.
You know, Jim, you keep on claiming that you don't know anything about mixed games, and yet you were able to tell that we are playing a mix of 8 different games.
It's a gift.
Phenomenal.
It's a
This
gift.
this is the moment you've been waiting for. We've been practicing lots of different variants, and this is the time that you get to put all of your knowledge together. Not only that, but you also get to use your no limit hold'em knowledge. This is exactly what Jim had talked about. It's 8 different games: deuce to 7 triple draw, limit hold'em, Omaha high-low 8 or better, Raz, 7-card stud, 7-card stud 8 or better, no limit hold'em, and pot limit Omaha. So it's very similar to horse. It's got all the horse games in there, but then we're adding deuce to 7 triple draw, no limit hold'em, and pot limit Omaha. So we have not only big bet games, but also limit games as well. You rotate through it just like you did in horse. The biggest difference, of course, is that you do have the no limit variance thrown in there as well. So that will change the play a little bit. Other than that, we've done it all before. That's why this is the last game. We're putting all the skills that we've learned throughout the year. 8-game mix is also what we play for the Tournament of Champions, if you're so lucky, in the mixed game series, because it does have the widest variety of mixed games, so you're able to flex as many of your muscles as you can. Anything specific, guys, that I am missing that we want to add in here about the mix?
Yeah, this is the longest home game that we have. The way that it's set up with Poker Stars is you essentially play level 1 for all of the 8 different games, and then after that it starts to slowly progress there. So grab a snack, grab something to drink. Like, it's going to be a long night as we go through that, but it's intentional to like make sure that you kind of like have a chance to hit all the different games, because otherwise it only progresses once each level as you kind of go through that. So it would take 80 minutes for you to get through all the games the first time around. So it will be very slow, very methodical. The limit games will be, you know, tedious as you're going through there, trying to get those bets, especially when you're relatively deep. And then it can be floodgates when you hit no limit hold'em or pot limit Omaha. So be wary of that, because that's where some big swings can come in. But it's going to be a long one. I think this usually takes over 6 hours for us to get to a winner in this version of our mixed games.
And keep in mind that as Taylor's talking about it being a long night, he is a 3-time champion of our mixed games club. Don't feel ashamed.
Not everyone.
Only playing this for an hour or two. Some people will only do that, but whoever lasts the longest is in for a long night.
Yeah, it makes sense. I do. The actual thing I was going to say as well is that it really does the different games, the small bet games and the big bet games. It really does give you an opportunity to change the dynamic at the table. Like you can really shift some stacks around in no limit hold'em or pot limit Omaha, like Taylor is saying, and depending on what games you feel more skilled in, you might choose to embrace the variance of those big bet games to sort of regain a skill edge a bit, or to maybe to neutralize a skill edge that some of your opponents might have against you, because a lot of these fixed limit games are going to be games of discipline and savvy, where the real technicians are going to make fewer mistakes than you and smaller mistakes than you. So, for some of our recreational listeners, I don't think there's anything wrong with kind of embracing the variance of some big bet games when it comes to spot like this.
Yeah, very true. Because I think we get used to some of like our heuristics when it comes to no limit hold'em. Like, I've got 10 bigs. I'm going to be jamming a ton of different hands. But you might want to just, think about it slightly differently when we're playing 8-game mix, because you might only hit the blinds once going around playing no limit hold'em. And then you may take your 10 big blind stack and flip into, I forget what's after it. I think it might be Potlam and Omaha, but like say we're shifting into some of the like mixed games of like stud. Well, 10 big blinds in stud is very different than 10 big blinds in no limit hold'em. So you can have more playability and more livelihood to your stack. So you have to consider that when you are playing no limit hold'em, what's that going to mean for the different games that you're playing?
Yeah, that makes sense.
And you can also, for the games that you're less familiar with, I wouldn't suggest you not play them. I mean, after all, we're playing to learn. But if you want to increase your strategy, just tighten up your starting ranges, particularly in the hands that you are, or in the games you're less fluent in, because that will make your decisions easier. You're going to be put into less tough situations. And pay attention when it's a game you don't know well. Pay attention to what everyone else is doing. Spend more time trying to learn than you are trying to play.
Yep, good advice. Gang, it's been so much fun doing these mixed game episodes with you all and with our fantastic guests. I just want to thank you, John, in particular, for the work that you do all year putting this home game club together. I don't think Rec Poker Nation appreciates the amount of time that you put in, but I do, and I really do appreciate it. And I know I speak for everyone involved, where we tip our cap to you and the efforts that you go through for very little thanks and reward, just to make the recreational poker world a better place. And it's a privilege to be here spreading the good word of mixed games with you. So thank you again, and just keep up your phenomenal work here at Rec Poker. It's very impressive.
Well, I would love to hear from any of the Rec Poker Nation about what their thoughts are on the mixed games and how they've what they like about it, don't like about it. Let me know. We're trying to build up the mixed games. As we've mentioned before in several of these, if you walk into a casino and you see a table that looks like they're having the most fun in the world, there's a good chance it's a mixed game table. People really like playing them. It gives you a chance to feel like someone isn't always better than you. You might be better than someone else at one of those particular games. And it keeps your mind going. You have to kind of stay on track, switching games every once in a while. The one thing that is a little harder, of course, if you're playing a mix of games, is multi-tabling. You have to
sure.
remember what game you're playing and trying to do multiple things. I mean, multi-tabling is always hard, even if you're just playing Hold'em, because you might be at different stages of tournaments. But when you're playing different games as well, it's even more challenging.
Particularly live. I don't advise it. Multi-tabling live in mixed games. That's a real challenge, and not every card room will be appreciative. But I will echo what John's saying. If you walk into a casino, you can tell the table they're playing mixed games at, because they're having fun, they're drinking, they're laughing, they're just having a great time. Also, I think playing different mixed games is good for your brain. Like, I think it's good to sort of practice with some of these different mental muscles than you're using just to play no limit hold'em. And I think some of the skills that you'll learn about hand reading and opponent reading will come in handy in hold'em as well. I don't think it's just a lost opportunity to spend more time playing hold'em. And the last thing I'll say about it is that these mixed games are very hard to solve. So I think, we talk about like the state of online poker or solvers or bots and that kind of thing. And I think, for heads up no limit hold'em and for some no limit hold'em functions, the game is approaching a point where it's kind of getting solved, and game security is going to be an issue from that perspective online. But mixed games are going to be around for a long time, and I think in a way, they're definitely the future of competitive poker. So I would encourage everyone to get on board and dip a toe in, because you're missing out on a lot of fun, and I do think it's kind of where the game is moving. Taylor?
Yeah, totally agree. And I hope some people, as they've gone through and played the different mixed games, resonate with what Jim was just saying, because I think it's very true in terms of mixed games. The different mixed games can improve various skills that you can take and use in No Limit Hold'em as well. There's different components of each of the mixed games that kind of emphasizes certain components and helps show you the value of that specific type or strategy that comes along with the game. Like Omaha is kind of good at teaching you nut advantage and understanding, that essential concept. A lot of the draw games are really good at reinforcing position and its value to the game. The stud games can be good for ranging your opponents, understanding like where they're at in specific hands, and then how you can take actions against those. So each of these different mix games have a different component for you that you can kind of take and hone and use in No Limit Hold'em, or at least reevaluate how you're viewing it in No Limit Hold'em, and see where it can add value to your game there. So I think mixed games is great for people, even if they don't really see much future of them playing stud going forward. Playing it for a bit and kind of understanding the different concepts of it can help reinforce that.
Yeah, and it is super fun. And there are resources out there. So I'll just remind folks, we've got this series of podcasts. There's 12 of them all year out there, going over a different mixed game. We've got the practice mixed games in our home game club. We're going to be doing all that again next year as well. And when it comes to mixed games in particular, I think this is a great opportunity to get a coach. Talk to someone who knows a little bit more than you, and just talk to them about the mixed game that you're trying to play a little bit. Go through some concepts. Do some hand examples. I know like Taylor and Rob and John are all Wrecking Crew members who love helping our members and our audience with their poker problems. A lot of the coaching stuff that we do is in No Limit Hold'em. But I just encourage folks, this is a hobby. Enjoy your hobby. Get better at your hobby. Invest in yourself, and give yourself a shortcut to being a better player. You can learn on your own, and you can learn with listening to podcasts and watching training videos and that kind of thing. But if you want to take your game to the next level, you need help, whether it's through a coach or a community, posting in the forums, posting on Discord, talking to friends at Rec Poker about hands and concepts. Life's easier when you've got people to help. So whether it's Rec Poker or another learning community out there, don't do it alone. Struggle along with the rest of us. It's more fun. You'll learn faster. Your ceiling's higher, and it just makes the whole thing a more fun and effective experience. So I hope you do. I wish I had earlier. So come join us over here at Rec Poker. Like I say, all it takes is an email address and a smile. But stay tuned. We're about to introduce you to some fantastic poker celebrities and pro players who are going to drop some of their own tips and advice on how to play 8-game mix. And maybe we'll see you next year in the Rec Poker Mixed Game Player of the Year race. My thanks to Taylor and Rob and John and all the other Wrecking Crew members who have been a part of this fantastic poker series. And a big thanks to all our fantastic guests who you've been hearing from all year long, who put their time in and shared their advice and tips to make your life better, audience members. So thanks for listening along. Thanks for being a great part of Rec Poker. And we'll talk to you next week on the Rec Poker Podcast. All right, Chad McVean, give me a tip on how to play 8-game mix.
8-game mix. It's the horse game. So Limit Hold'em, Omaha 8 or better, Raz, Stud 8 or better. And then they throw in Limit Deuce to 7 triple draw, Pot Limit Omaha, and No Limit Hold'em. So if you are not a mixed game player, you're going to be good for one of the 8 games. Really, again, like with horse, not everyone is going to be proficient with all of the games. What I actually find is when you get to the No Limit Hold'em portion and the PLO portion, people tend to go a little wild because it's the big bet prospect there, where all the other games are limit betting. So that's where some people can make back some chips they've lost in the other games they don't like, or you can really take a commanding lead if you make a solid hand in there. What I find when I'm playing that, when I get to the pot limit Omaha or the no limit hold'em, I tend to sit back and really, really only play premiums because you can make a lot, but you can also lose a lot.
All right, Chris Fox Wallace, give me some tips on how to play 8-game mix.
I think it's important I played a lot of 8-game mixed tournaments, and I think it's really important to be careful of the games you don't play well and getting roped into pots, in particular because you tend to make bad folds in games you don't play well. I used to, before I played a lot of PLO and really worked on my PLO game, I used to take the PLO rounds almost off. I just almost wouldn't play them because I learned that the serious PLO players would really take advantage of me. Once I learned to play PLO, then I let the PLO players try to take advantage of me, and I love it. It's great now. But if you don't play a particular game well, don't dust off your chips in that game, right? Be careful and tight, and make sure that if you don't play PLO well, and there's a raise and 3 callers and you have aces, just rip it in and take the money now or get it in as a favorite. Don't play around. Don't flat. Don't get yourself in trouble. Right. And if the stacks are deep and somebody raises and you have aces, you can flat, don't give it away. And if you don't flop a set of aces, and this is a good Omaha player, just throw your hand away if you don't hit something. Right. Just don't lose a ton of chips in the big bet games if you don't play the big bet games well.
All right, Mike Patrick, give me some tips on how to play 8-game mix.
All right. So when we talked about horse a few months back, the tip that I gave you guys was that it's best to recognize what game you are most comfortable in and what games that you're not most comfortable in, and play accordingly to not get yourself in trouble. That is really accentuated in an 8-game mix because you have the big bet games in there as well. And a lot of times when you're playing with people that are you can go both ways actually with this. You're going to have players that are more experienced that are playing these games, but they are primarily big bet game players. They play their no limit hold'em, they play the PLO, and they're generally going to be a little weaker in the mixed games. And vice versa. If you are a new player, you're obviously going to be more comfortable with no limit hold'em and maybe PLO if you played it. And then the mixed games are going to be, kind of newer to you. So be careful with that. The best advice with regards to that is recognize who those players are, recognize who those people that are stronger in the big bet games than the limit games, and recognize them, play them accordingly, and be careful because there's going to be a lot of players out there that are, big bet wizards and they can play PLO better than anybody, but they don't know what to do with a stud 8 hand. So they're going to be playing their PLO hands more aggressively. They're going to be trying to make their edge in those big bet games. So when you get into a game like that, just recognize who those players are going to be, and make sure you don't get yourself in trouble in those big bet games that can basically wipe out your edge in the limit games in the fell swoop of a big PLO hand. So just be careful that you don't get yourself in trouble with the big bet games if you're more comfortable in the limit games.
All right, Norman Chad, give me some tips on how to play 8-game mix.
When I play a game mix, it seems like it comes down to the pros against the recs. If you're a rec like me, the thing about 8-game mix that makes it different than horse, which is a 5-game mix, is that it adds pot limit and no limit games, which when you're a rec player in general, you want to stay away from the pros in those games. That they have a better sense of it all. So when I do play 8-game mix, or I play the dealer's choice, which is 20 games, I try to stay away. If I'm you, I stay away from pot limit and no limit, particularly out of position. They're better than us. Stick to the limit games. Like in dealer's choice, it's pretty funny when you're at a certain table, you'll see the pros calling all the big bet games, and you'll see the little nits like me calling, oh, let's just play some stud 8. Let's just stud 8. So stay away from the big bet games unless you're comfortable with them, because that includes pot limit Omaha, that includes no limit hold'em, and includes deuce to 7, correct? And I told you deuce to 7 single no limit single draw is the toughest game in the world. It's tougher than no limit hold'em. Stay away from the big bet games in 8-game mix. Don't get mixed into a hand unless you're really in good position.
All right, Robbie Strazynski, give me some advice on how to play 8-game mix.
Favor your strong games. If you're pretty decent at No Limit Hold'em, Top Limit Omaha, and maybe one other game, stay patient when the other games are being played, and then strike when it's, when you're good at those games. And I would also say if you're really good at fixed limit games, right? Most of the games, 6 out of the 8 are fixed limit. So when it comes time for Pot Limit Omaha and No Limit Hold'em, those games happen more quickly. The hands finish more quickly. Stay patient and wait till they play the 75% of the games that you're better at.
All right, Shannon Van Den Berg, let me get some tips on how to play 8-game mix.
This is a beautiful mix of all of the games. All of a sudden, we're bringing everything together. Everything you've been learning and playing all year, you now get to put it into action. So play to your strengths. If you can pick up chips in those big bet rounds like No Limit Hold'em and PLO, you can wait for those rounds. Play to your strengths. Make sure you're playing the correct variant. This is really, really hard, especially live. A lot of people have in their mind, oh yes, I was just playing Deuces 7. Now it should be obvious by the number of cards in front of you, but sometimes the way that the mix is put together, it isn't that obvious. And I know playing on stars, it tells you and things like that, but it doesn't mean you're not multi-tabling and you're going to forget. So just remember the game that you're playing. Be mindful of the betting structures of each variant. So no limit, pot limit, and fixed limit, bet sizing and requirements are all different. So you might have been playing limit hold'em, then all of a sudden you're playing no limit hold'em, and your bet sizing could be and would be different in no limit hold'em, of course, because it's not fixed limit. Same in pot limit. For those that don't play it much, you don't have to pot all of the time. You can make other bets. So just be mindful of all of the betting limits, all of the different variants, bring all of your skills together, follow everything I've said, and I've no doubt you're going to win this game.
All right, well, that was another fun conversation about mixed games. My thanks to, of course, the Running Aces Hotel, Racetrack, and Casino for their support over the years. To John Somsky and the other members of our Wrecking Crew panel here talking about their love of mixed games, and all our fantastic guests who contributed their segments, their thoughts and tips and advice on how to get the most out of some different mixed games that we're going to be playing. So I'd encourage you, head on over to rec.poker, sign up for a free account there. You can go to rec.poker/home game and find out all about the different mixed games that are being played throughout the year, a different one every month. And I would encourage our listeners, if you're a No Limit Hold'em player, dip a toe into some of the mixed games. You'll be surprised how much fun you can have. So without further ado, I'll just say thanks for joining us for another week of the Rec Poker Podcast. And I hope I get to see you all again next week or sometime real soon. Good luck on the felt, folks. Thanks again. Bye for now.